Alright, so we'll be talking about literature today. Literature in English. Now, many of us will be wondering what literature in English is. What's the definition of literature? But in simple terms, literature is simply defined as a mirror of the society. Now, you'll be surprised why I called it the mirror of the society. It is the mirror of the society because the work of art you read, when I mean work of art, the poems, the novels, the plays you read, they try to mirror the society. When you pick a mirror, you see a reflection of yourself on that mirror. Same way you pick a work of art to read, you see a reflection of what goes on in the society inside. Now, writers time and again have tried to write on things that are peculiar to their society. And they don't only write, they try to send a message out there. Either they send a message or they paint a picture of what they want people out there to see. So basically, literature is didactic. Now, we'll be wondering what I mean by didactic. It's didactic because it teaches lessons. There are a lot of things to learn from reading a work of art. So, our first definition we should have in mind when we are asked to define literature is that literature is a mirror of society. On the other hand, literature could be a work of art that entertains, educates, and informs us. So, we can have these two broad definitions in our mind. But basically, as a student of literature in English, what you should have in mind is that literature mirrors our society. And then we have three genres of literature. Now, by genres, I mean three different broad categories that make up literature. The first is prose, the second is poetry, and the third is play or drama. Now, these three genres have their distinctive features. They have their different characteristics that make them different from the other. The prose is what we call, it comes in the forms of novels, short stories. So when you pick a novel to read, you pick a short story to read, they are all what? Prose. But then, under prose, we have what is called fiction. And non-fiction. Now, fiction basically is an imagination, is an imaginative work. It is a work of art written in the imagination of the writer. For example, there's a book called Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Now, in that book, he wrote about a particular community called Umuofia. I have it on good authority that there is nowhere in the entire southeast, in Igbo land, that is called Umuofia. But the writer wrote something that is typical of the Igbo society and named the society Umuofia, named different fictitious characters. These people didn't exist. They are all imaginary characters, imaginary stories in the mind of the writer. Then there's what we call non-fiction. Now, non-fiction is the opposite of fiction. In non-fiction, the story is real. And we sometimes find this in biographies. Yes, you'll be surprised to hear that when you are reading a biography, you are reading a work of art. Biographies, autobiographies, and biographies. Now, there's a difference between the both of them. Now, some notable individuals, because of their exploits in life, their adventures, different things they've done in their feats of endeavor and careers, while they are still alive, they decide to write what is called an autobiography. An autobiography is a story of one's life written by himself. Now, while a biography is a story of one's life written by another person, but usually biographies are written for people who are deceased, dead persons. probably they are written when the person is long gone. But autobiographies are written by that same person. That person is alive when the story was written, and it was written by him. Now, these are all works of non-fiction. Aside autobiography, we have what we call diary. It's a very age-long culture, but most people still do it to tomorrow. Now, people keep diaries. They write out events as it unfolds in their life, probably daily, weekly, monthly, annually, whichever way they decide to do it. But it's like a timeline in the sense that it shows the life and time of that person. The person who writes about his daily activities, his weekly activities, everything that happens around his life is written in that diary, and they are all work of literature, but they fall under the genre known as prose, and they are called non-fiction. Now, someone that writes a prose is known as a novelist. A writer of prose is known as novelist. And then, like we said earlier, novels are not the only things we call prose. There are also other stories we call short stories or novella. Now, why we call them short stories is because probably they could be from, let's say, 10 to 50 pages. But the novels proper, you could have novels that span over 500, 1000 pages. But the short stories are usually very small. Now, the persons that combine both the short story, the novel, what have you, we've already mentioned, is called a novelist. And then there's a writing system for prose. Prose are written in chapters. They are written in chapters, and the chapters are written in sentences. Sentences are written in what? In paragraphs. That's how the writer details his work in a prose. That's that about prose. Now, we're going to talk about the next subgenre of literature, which is known as poetry. When I talk about poetry, the first thing that should come to our mind are poems. Poems. Poetry is something everybody can relate with. We hear songs every day, be they religious songs, popular culture songs, whatever you have, they all fall under poetry. Now, poems, unlike prose, are written in lines, verses, and stanzas. And like we said before, for prose, people who write poems are called poets. And also, like we have different types of prose, there are different types of poems. We have the ballad, we have the elegy, we have the dirge. Now, and other different forms. Ballad is usually a story, an epic story that talks about probably the life of a very notable figure, and probably the person goes on a conquest, the person is a warrior, the way the person fights and all that. It's actually a very lengthy poem. It's like a storytelling poem. Then elegy and dirge are almost the same. But dirge is a mournful poem. It's a poem that is used to mourn someone. The Bible is filled with such kind of poems. There's a book in the Bible called Lamentations. Now, it is written in a dirge form. It's a kind of mourning. Why elegy, on the other hand, praises a dead person, someone that has died. Elegy praises the person, talks about the good works the person have done while he was alive. Dirge, on the other hand, is just to mourn the demise of that person. That's the difference between the both of them. Now, they have different styles for writing poems. Different styles. Now, some people do what we call rhyming. Rhyming in the sense that the different lines, the different verses in the poem, they follow a rhythmic pattern. Rhymes and rhythm. They follow a pattern when you are reading the poem. Now, that is that about that. And then also, we said earlier that poems are written in lines, verses, and stanzas. Now when we go into poetry proper, by the time we're going to start studying poetry proper and take some poems recommended in literature, we will now get to see the different kinds of lines, different kinds of measurements we use in measuring lines in poems. Now a poem of 2 lines, for example, is called a couplet. A poem of 14 lines, we have poems of 14 lines, we have poems of 20 lines. A poem of 14 lines is called a sonnet. And then we have different kinds of sonnets. We have the Shakespearean sonnet, written after William Shakespeare. He has a style of writing sonnet. We have the Elizabethan sonnet. We have different kinds of sonnets and different kinds of verses and stanzas as well. By the time we go into poetry proper, we will not get to look at these things basically. Then the last genre of literature is what we call play or drama. This is basically a work of art that is done on a stage. But then we have what we call a play test. Now there's a huge difference between this and this. Why this is done on the stage, this is actually done in a book. When we write about a play in a book and you get to read it, it's a play test. But when you are watching it live on stage, it's a play. But when you are holding the book itself where the play is written, it's called a play test. And the person that writes a play is known as a playwright. Is known as a playwright. Now, there are different features of play. Now, we have what we call the costume. The costume is basically the clothes that those who are going to perform in the play wear. That's what it is, the costume. Now, if you're watching a play where we have a farmer, how you get to know that this person is a farmer is the way the person is dressed. You're watching a play where we have an engineer, a doctor, and all that. So the costume brings out the life in the character. It gives you a picture of who the character is. Now that takes us to the next feature of playwriting, which is character. Now these are the actors, the people who take part in the play itself. And we can have different types of characters. We have round characters, we have flat characters. Now, let me take my time to explain these characters to you. I said we have round and we have flat characters. Now, when you are reading a play, round characters are people that they don't change. Sorry, round characters change rather in the play. It's flat characters that don't change. Flat characters are static, they are stock characters. They assume a particular character in the play. That's how it is for them to the end of the play. Now, circumstances in the play does not change the attitudes of those persons. They remain the same to the end of that work of art. But round characters, they are dynamic. They can change. They are subject to change. Now, probably something is going well for them in the play. You can see that, you see the better part of them. Things are beginning to take the downside. You see the negative side of them in the play. So they are round. They take all kind of forms and shapes in the work of art. While flat or stock characters, on the other hand, they remain static to the end of the work of art. They don't change. Now, we have what we call dialogue. Now, this is a very essential part of the play, dialogue. This is usually the conversation between characters in the play. Apart from dialogue, we have monologue. We have aside, and we have soliloquy. Now there's a huge difference between monologue, aside, and soliloquy. But we're going to take our time to explain all this to you. Now, we said dialogue is a conversation between characters in a play. So what comes to your mind in dialogue is two characters. Two characters are talking in a play. But for monologue, it's usually a character, a single character is talking in a play. And the audience are listening to the character. Now, a very important part of playwriting or play itself, drama itself, is the audience. You can't do without the audience. There's a connection between the characters and their audience. Now, in dialogue, two characters are talking on stage, the audience are listening to them. Monologue, a character is talking on stage, the audience and his fellow characters on stage too are listening to him. But in an aside, the audience do not hear what the characters are talking. They go aside the stage. That is why it's called aside. They are somewhere outside, not really outside the stage, but their conversations are in downtones. The audience don't hear them. Other characters do not hear them. Those who are having the aside are the only ones that hear themselves on stage. Now, in soliloquy, you could have 5-6 characters on stage. A particular character is soliloquizing. It's only the audience that listens or hears what that character is saying. Every other character on stage at that point is mute to what that character is saying. In soliloquy, it's only one particular character that is talking to himself. He is soliloquizing. In literature, he's doing what we call stream of consciousness. Now, by stream of consciousness, there are different thoughts going through his mind, and he's pouring them out, and the audience are listening ear to his streams of consciousness. But for aside, take note, the audience do not hear what the characters on stage are saying. In monologue, the audience hears, but it's only one character that is having that conversation on stage. Now, there's what we call sets and props in play. Now, these are the different items you find on the stage. And let's say, for example, we are going to watch a play on a house, a parlor. People are seated in a parlor. You are going to see things like chairs, furniture, and the rest. Now, these sets and props are items that make up that particular scene. And plays are divided into acts and scenes. Plays are divided into acts and scenes, just the way prose are divided into chapters. Plays are divided into acts and scenes. And a play is made up of 5 acts. One act is made up of 5 scenes. Now, we have another thing again in playwriting, in play, that's known as prompter or narrator. Now, the prompter is different from the narrator. The prompter, if a particular character forgets his line on stage, it's the duty of the prompter to remind the character his line, either remind the character his line or tell the character what to do so the audience don't seal that space in art. Then the narrator probably tells us details about the story that we get to know. That is the duty of the narrator. Now, aside this, there are other peculiar stuff that we are going to take note of too in playwriting. Now, there's what we call flashback. Flashback technique. Now, most playwrights have used this technique to a very good measure. You could start to read the play from the end. When I mean the end, you start the story from the climax, where the story ended. And then the playwrights use a flashback technique to take you back in time to know what happened in the past. That's what the flashback technique is all about. It's all about taking us back into the past to see some actions that must have affected the life and times of characters in that play. Now, we have what we call foreshadowing. Foreshadowing. Now, foreshadowing is the opposite of the flashback technique. Foreshadowing tells you what is going to happen in the future in a particular play, while flashback tells you what has happened in the past in that particular play. Now, aside flashback technique, foreshadowing, there are other different techniques too that are used by playwrights, employed by playwrights in writing a play. Another one is known as Deus Ex Machina. We are watching a very suspense-filled play. Now, take note, viewers, suspense is a life wire of playwriting. There are series of suspense keeps the play going. Without suspense, a play is boring. So the playwright tries to employ suspense to keep the play going. Now, Deus ex machina is simply an intervention, a way that the playwright uses in ending a story. Let's take, for example, you're watching a particular play, and then we forgot to tell you about this. The protagonist and the antagonist are two important characters in a play. The protagonist is the chief character in the play. The antagonist, as the name implies, is someone that opposes the protagonist. Is always acting to wicked or do something that is against the interest of the protagonist. But the protagonist is the lead character, the chief character in the work of art. Now, you are watching a suspense play, and the protagonist is in problem, is in a big mess, probably something that is going to cost his life. The playwright uses an intervention. Probably he is running, he's in the bush, the antagonist wants to kill him, and he comes before an island, there's no boat, there's no nothing, and all of a sudden a rescue comes and saves him from the antagonist. That is the duty of the Deus ex machina. It's an intervention in the life of the protagonist that brings the story to a happy ending. Now, there's what we call prologue and epilogue. A prologue is usually a short statement given before a play. It gives you a preamble, it gives you a little bit of a picture of what the play will be like. While the epilogue is a submission of the playwright at the end of the play. So there are many things we can consider as far as playwriting is concerned, but these are the few we're going to talk about for now. And when we go into these different genres proper, you will now get to see what this and this are. But like we said earlier, prose has its distinctive features. They have different characteristics that makes a prose different from a poem, so as well as a play. So these are the three genres of literature. Now, in our next class, we're going to start proper with what the prose is, prose writing, what it entails, how to write a novel, the characteristics of a good novel, and then we're going to check some recommended novels for literature in English. Thank you, and see you next class.